Hi, Tanya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have this conversation with you. I first have to give a preface to all the listeners on how I actually met you, because I think that's a really great story. I think it was back in 2018 or 2019. It just shows how much of an impression you have on people and how much of an impression you had on me. We were in the UPW line for Tony Robbins' event in 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019. And I was waiting in line. It was my first UPW event I've ever been to. I was so excited, but I was presented with a 2.5 hour line to get in the door. And I was like, what is this? This makes no sense. Like, I'm not going to wait 2.5 hours to get in. There was like 20,000 people there. It was unbelievable. And Tanya and her husband were right in front of me. And we hung out and chatted, and I just saw this vibrant, energetic lady, and the way she was talking and the way she was holding herself. You were like gravity, and it was so cool to engage with you, and you were telling me about all the things that you've done it multiple times at UPW, and you were saying how great it was and that this is just part of the process. Don't worry about it. You friended me on Facebook, and you were just such a great energy, and I just got to tell you, like, you set such a strong impression in me. And so now that we're on this new journey of launching the podcast and being more socially, aware or public in the social stuff, I'm like, I got to get her on the podcast and share her journey and what she's working on. And so, yeah, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I remember that day. I remember standing in line, and I had never taken my husband to any Tony Robbins event. And I had already been to like Date with Destiny and other big, huge ones. My husband, though, is very much an introvert. So I was like, okay, I got to keep him in a good space. And now I got this guy behind me that he's like ready to leave. He doesn't want to stay in this line. I'm like, all right, guys, come on, let's get it together here.
Yeah, exactly. I think your husband and I were in the same page. Like, what is about to happen to us? This looks like a cult process. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it was great to have you right there to pull us along through the line. I think him and I both benefited from it for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you guys stuck it out. Thanks.
So I have a bunch of questions, but we'll start with, what does it mean? What does richness mean to you? What does it mean to be rich?
Okay. I've known a lot of miserable millionaires. So richness for me means resources to do what you want to do and spend time with the people you want to spend time with. Like the ability to live in your purpose and see progress on a daily basis, and to have those around you be safe. What I've realized is richness will never mean that you won't have problems. I think richness just means you have enough resources that you have more options to deal with those problems.
That's so good. Tell us a little bit about your journey, because you're now this really amazing coach. You work with leaders and performance and leadership, and tell me, I guess, the progress in where you were, where you started, and then like what were the major shifts that caused you to take a lot more of your control of your time, create more freedom in your life, and how did that all manifest?
Okay. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I've basically reinvented a number of times throughout my life. In 2019, I actually started as an associate financial planner with one of the people that I really respected from my hometown in South Dakota. And I was in Minneapolis. So while I was going to school full time, I ended up working as a financial planner as well on that journey, part-time as her associate. So I really got into networking and really meeting people and building connections and that sort of thing. I ended up, after I got married super young. And my friend and I, that was the financial planner, who happens to be one of the top 5% in the nation now as a woman. Kudos to her. Mm-hmm. I finally earned the right to be back as a customer of hers just in the last year.
Yeah.
So that was a huge win. But anyways, we kind of sat down and had this conversation of the grind it takes to be an entrepreneur and to build, and what that means to relationships. And being newly married, we kind of made the decision that I wasn't up for 80-hour weeks, and I wasn't up for doing that life at that point of time. I really, really wanted to build a healthy marriage, and we needed benefits straight up. Like health insurance was a thing when you're in your young 20s. So I ended up going to work in the healthcare industry. I worked for a company in Minnesota that had the insurance, the clinic system, and a level 1 trauma center hospital. And I was there for 10 years, got my master's degree. In the middle of that, got really into health and wellness and fitness, even did some fitness competition things. Ended up down a very long and varied path, owning a franchise with my husband while we both were still working careers. We kept our careers in order to pay our staff to work at the retail franchise because we made more than it cost to pay staff. And long story short, we started that in 2007. The markets crashed. So at age 30, we ended up having to file for bankruptcy, lost my rental properties, lost my home, lost my business, and really kind of gave up for a bit on that entrepreneurial dream. But once you've got it in your blood, it never really goes away. So 2013, I hit my 10-year anniversary at Health Partners. I had gotten a 2% raise at the health insurance company. I'd gotten a 2% raise for finishing my master's degree. And that was kind of my aha moment of,
wow,
I want to grow, like I want to do something. Network marketing ended up kind of being my first big leap out. I got a life coaching and did a lot of life coaching certification, did a lot of small business coaching. And then it was kind of a rocky path, did a startup company for a little bit, and finally landed in the space of e-commerce in September of 2018. And ended up in some really good mentorship situations, 2018, and all of that networking and hard work and kind of tumultuous path to that place kind of all came together. And 2018 to now has been when really I kind of monetized all the work I'd been doing for the 18 years before that, I would say.
Wow, that's a really amazing journey. That was cool. There's a lot of things that are coming up to me, and I want to dig into a few of these things. I guess let's start at the bankruptcy. What was going through your mind? You said, well, you had this itch. Once you're an entrepreneur, you're always entrepreneur. But like, what were the thoughts in your head as you made that pivot? Right? What were the things that you were either telling yourself, or what are the things that were showing up for you to get back on your feet and feel motivated to keep moving forward? Because I think that's a really important lesson for people to hear about when you get knocked on your bum and you feel like, oh my God, I can't believe, I'm highly educated. How could this have happened to me? What was going through your head, and how did you really make that turning point?
Yeah, so bankruptcy for me at the time, I probably handled that almost worse than a death. I was so ashamed and humiliated. My mother had passed away tragically when I was 9, but she was very, very financially savvy and very, very smart. So I felt like I was kind of letting that down. And then I had been a financial planner. I mean, I had gotten like financial planning series 6, series 63. Those are all like educational, like certifications you need in order to do some of that work when I was 19. So I had been maxing out retirement plans and Roth IRAs since I was 19. And through the process of trying to keep that franchise alive, 10 years later, 28, 29, 30 years old, I ended up cashing out all of that in the attempt to keep it alive. Was happening. Yeah. So it was very hard for me. And in the end, what ended up happening is when you get a retail space, we had signed a 10-year lease. So there was some extenuating circumstances. Even though we went bankrupt, it got us out of that 10-year lease for a business we couldn't keep afloat. but we still had to pay back the business loan because a family member had co-signed us. So for me, going bankrupt was humiliating and took a lot of things, but the rental property I had was upside down. So like all of that ended up just going, but I was still paying loan from, like, it didn't wipe away my debt, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I had a $1,200 reminder every day, every month from 2010. I didn't pay that thing off until 2019. I had a $1,200 business loan for a business that didn't exist anymore.
Wow.
For 9 years. So to actually go, that was in 2010. And I just worked my job, finished my master's degree, just like nose to the grindstone, and just focused on staying simple, keeping our living expenses low, and just working to pay debt. But it was literally just a hamster wheel for those years. So then in 2013, that 10-year anniversary, my nephew was born. My dad was in a farming accident. He's fine now, but it was very serious. All of this happened in the same week. And I had that moment of, I have to believe in myself again, because life is so short. You cannot take this for granted. And it had to get to that point, literally, where there was a lot of life happening with my nephew being born and my dad going through an accident, and the 10-year anniversary literally happened all within a week. And I was just like, I know there is more. And I'd finally done enough healing in that 3 years from the bankruptcy to realize, there are things in business that happen that you have no control over. And one of the things that happened was a lawyer said to me, he said, Tanya, our economy is built on people not going to debtor's prison or being hung for having debt. Our country was built on people that were big believers, believing in something, given the chance to try and fail and try again.
Oh, so good.
Because there are so few people with the tenacity and the grit and thick enough skin to go try again. You have to make sure that few percentage can do that safely, not take advantage of it. But he's like, our country, like, people literally fled to our country hundreds of years ago to have that opportunity. And he said, I know you have your debt snowball where, like, you could pay all of this off by the time you are 40. But our country needs people like you to go out there and serve and try again, and give people the opportunity to follow you again. And someday you will. And it took me 3 years, but I never forgot that speech he gave me. And he's right.
He's right. And I think that, I think people don't realize quite how much entrepreneurs tie their business to their own identity. And when something as dramatic as 2008, COVID, a bankruptcy, maybe losing, failing on a customer or ruining a relationship, like how personally entrepreneurs take that, even though you're not expected to show it. You need to show strength. You need to show like vitality, but it becomes really personal. And I think I've gone through this journey recently that, because you are a natural risk taker, you are a natural, like, you have this tenacity to be like, okay, it's okay, I can get knocked down, I'm going to get back up. It's just part of your being, right? It's your DNA. And there's something to be said about that. And I think you're right in that America, or the United States, definitely has this culture that, like, we reward risk taking. Now, we also get our butts handed to us once in a while, and there's a lesson there. But like, we live in a country where it's like, okay, you can reset and you can start all over, and you're surrounded by people who can. Let's talk about mentors and people that you've surrounded yourself with throughout your journey. And I really want to understand it from a woman's perspective. I mean, I have a lot of coaches and mentors that I've been blessed to surround myself with. And actually, one of the reasons why I launched the podcast is because I think people need to hear more about how can you build a community around you to help improve your probability of success. And so tell me about your journey with mentors in the different niches that you've kind of explored and how you've gotten here.
Yeah, that's really definitely been something that's created a lot of impact, and I also think has been the biggest area of growth for me. One of the things is so early in my life, obviously the financial planner was a woman. I had some mentors in the healthcare space and health insurance space that were women as well. But so I've always had very strong female figures to follow in that regard. However, what was interesting is as I went into the entrepreneurial world, specifically in the health insurance and in that space and the kind of like career space, the corporate accepted space, even the space of the relationships I had from being in school and my master's degree, a lot of those people very much didn't respect some of what I was doing then in the entrepreneurial space. So
explain that a little bit more.
Allowing myself, it's just not, allowing myself to break out of that mold and maybe in some cases even disappoint some people. That was very hard, I feel. And the biggest mentors I've had in the entrepreneurial space, I had one woman, literally amazing work ethic, but personally still like struggled with some aspects of quote unquote balance or harmony and things like that. But then when I ended up really growing, I believe, and in the process of growing into who I can truly be as an entrepreneur, as a leader, I ended up with mentors that didn't look like me, act like me, different ages, very different personalities, some even different values from a family perspective. And getting over the idea that my mentors had to be mentors in all areas of my life. I think that's one thing. The second thing was stepping truly into that business space. If I would have let myself continue on some of the paths I was on, loyalty should never lead to poverty. And sometimes I think specifically women can get into this situation of falling in love with a culture and a support and a group of people that are a great community, but financially and from a business perspective, are you developing into the person that can financially support yourself, take your self to the next level from a business perspective and really get yourself where you need to be? And sometimes you need to know, there's something to be said for grit and going until you're successful, but you could also be in the wrong vehicle. And if you aren't thick-skinned enough to see that and hunt out until you find the right fit, stick it out long enough to make sure it's not you and not, you starting and stopping. Are you giving it due diligence? But for me, I was literally 2 times in my life in the wrong space, and I stayed a little bit too long in both of those spaces, or maybe it just hurt enough that I can truly appreciate what I had now. But it ended up being always listening and allowing myself to learn from people that weren't just like me.
Do you think that's harder for women than men? I mean, that was a really great lesson there. I love loyalty should never lead to poverty. That's such a profound, powerful statement. Yeah.
I think both women and men can deal with this. I think we all grow through a lot of that. The ability to have real relationships and communication, it comes down to communication and ego,
Right.
Will you allow yourself to be mentored by someone younger than you or by someone that's a different sex or maybe less educated than you, especially in the entrepreneurial world? A lot of the entrepreneurs that succeed the most have the least amount of classical education, master's degrees and things like that. Those don't go hand in hand in the entrepreneurial world.
Right.
Like book learning and
practical
entrepreneurial success are not necessarily always, aligned. They aren't always an indicator of success. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I know that as I grew and made the hardest decisions that hurt the most, and sometimes breaking from some of those communities that were no longer serving me. I mean, I got called ruthless. I've gotten told I acted like a man. And some of those very stereotypical generalities, which I think our society has labeled them masculine or feminine, but especially, I think all of us need to just check the labels in some cases, and we're all learning to grow through that and things like that. But definitely, getting rid of the idea that as a woman that you don't need to understand numbers, or that you can't be told hard truths and communicated with truthfully. And I learned how to not take it personally. Take real feedback and stay in the game and get in the grind and not take it personally. So I think both financially, learn the numbers, be the numbers, expect people to show you real numbers, and be able to take real feedback and criticism. Those two things have changed my life the most from a business perspective.
Well, what I love about the way your mindset is about this topic is that, you're not afraid of saying, look, I need help. I don't need somebody to solve all my life problems. I don't need the silver bullet, but I need somebody to fix or work on this specific topic in my life. And you lean into that, you take the hard feedback, and then you get out and you go look for someone else for another topic or another specific, right? So I love how you're able to find clarity in exactly what you're needing. And I also find that a lot of people either don't know how to go find mentors, or look for the right mentor, or feel like they need a mentor and they're stuck. What would you tell people that maybe are stuck and don't know how to go find the right mentor? How do you navigate that process?
Well, first of all, some of your mentors you may never meet in person, and they may never have a clue who you are.
Yes.
Some of it I can remember walking around. I lived in Minneapolis, and I would walk around Lake Nokomis, and I was feeling really like I wasn't in progress in 2015, 2016, 2017. There were periods of time when I was feeling really stuck. And I remember I listened to the old Tony Robbins. There's a free set of stuff on Spotify, and it's old,
right.
It's really old, but it goes in, I think it's still there. I looked the other day, and I remember I just had it on repeat, and I would walk around the lake. So it was more I don't know if you remember the saying, I think it probably even came from Tony Robbins. It's emotion follows motion.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let myself stay stuck in the circumstances I was in right now. And I didn't know what the answer was. And in fact, it would take self-sabotage and some drastic things to happen in 2017 and 2018 before I found the path. But that never meant I wouldn't find the path. I was always doing what I could to keep myself in movement, keep my mind growing, and keep in the hunt for what I did need, even though I couldn't quite identify what it was yet. You have to have that openness to that it's coming. So maybe you're watching things on YouTube, or you're reading books, or you're going to different events, you're attending a different events on Zoom if it's COVID times, till you feel the energy. Because I do believe you will get led somewhere and your gut will know, but you have to put yourself in situations to find those things. You can't just hold yourself up and not be in pursuit of, if that makes sense.
Well, I love that, because you're right in that most mentors you never meet in your entire life. You're right. And there's so much free value and content and powerful messages out there now that, the Tony Robbins, the Abraham Hicks, there's so many Jordan Peterson, there's so many people who have really great messages, and you don't have to meet them. You just listen to their stuff.
And it doesn't matter where you are. I think in corporate, I was there 10 years, and I would listen to things on my commute. Mm-hmm. Abraham Hicks, I can remember listening to, what was the book? I can even see it. I was on the train, and I was reading, and I was listening at the same time. And I can't remember the book right now, but I remember I was on my way. I was on the train going into work, and I was very into fitness at that time. I thought I would end up with a fitness franchise. And on the way in, I was like, I am going to manifest a partner that has enough money for a down payment. I'm going to do this. And I kid you not, at 10 a.m. that day, a gentleman walked into the office building. He came in and he was a marketing consultant, and he saw that I was drinking a protein shake, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And we talked a little bit, probably 5 minutes, about fitness. And he's like, "You know what's really on my heart?" He's like, "I want to own a franchise, but I just want to be a silent investor. I want someone else to run it for me. I want someone else to manage it." And I said, I pulled out my notebook and I said, "I wrote this morning." And from there on started my franchise journey. Like it was all Abraham Hicks and manifestation. I was in the pursuit of, and things can just start happening. Now there's other things that I've seen pop up in my life that literally I can remember thinking about and believing in, but it took 3 to 5 years for them to actually come to fruition.
Right.
And it was a very, very jagged journey path to get there, but it all had to happen in that way.
We could talk about this topic for 4 hours. And I think that there's a lot of people who may think about manifestation as woo-woo, but I'm completely there with you. The power of this art of allowing and having an abundance mindset. Tell me about the power of, or maybe just help us define it for people who are listening, the difference between a scarcity and abundance mindset, and having this contrast, and maybe even some of the benefits of having an abundance mindset and some of the traps.
So by nature, I'm a worrier, and I fear. I am often driven out of fear and scarcity. I have to work daily at coming from a place of abundance. So coming from a place of working from inspiration versus desperation. And I think in the last year is when I've had to do the most work on myself, because working from that space keeps you working. Basically, I was raised Catholic. I'm 100% German. My family, both sides of my family, still live on the original farmsteads, literally. Like there's some hardcore people there. In that hardcore work ethic and mindset, of living in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, those winters are rough. Like seriously. So working just because you're supposed to work and coming from that place of scarcity and never enough, that literally drove me for a very long time. And it's taken Tony Robbins events.
You're not alone. You're not alone in that, right?
Lots of books, lots of things. And coming more from an abundance space, so everything doesn't have to be, I don't have to be a martyr to success. And I've really worked on that, and really worked on living in joy and being in love with life that is, as well as still working towards the next. And I think entrepreneurs especially have to be careful of, being and living and accepting and loving what is while still progressing towards the next thing. And one of my best friends, Jackie, I think she had a saying that she just a couple of months ago started saying, and she said, I think it's been the best one-liner that has helped me realize what it means to come from a place of scarcity versus a place of abundance. And a lot of times you'll hear, how bad can it get? And I've even written lists of how bad it could get, because if it can't get any worse than that, then it kind of frees you up to at least go for it.
Right.
So I've literally used that method in my life. But instead, what if the natural question that comes to your mind is, how good could it be? How much better could it be? How much better can it be? And coming from that place instead of how bad could it get, that for me in the last, I would even say 2 months, is something that I am trying to shift from a mental space of, instead of just going from, I have to do this or I suck. Like, well, what if I don't make it? What if I make it? Instead, coming from that place of, oh my gosh, how much better could this get this month? How much better, how much more could I even create this month? How good could this get? And coming from that place, that for me, because scarcity versus abundance can be really or at least for me, has been a hard shift to make. But that one-liner, how good could it be, has changed a lot.
I just imagine like this little kid, like taking the blessings and like taking them in, right? Like, how good, oh my God, this is so good. I'll take this one. And it just keeps, it's almost, that's a snowball too. It's almost like this gratefulness snowball of a positive motion, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's so awesome. I want to talk about, and do you find that actually increases your abundance in terms of having this mindset? Like, you know, the universe serves you for having that sort of art of allowing, openness. Don't think about what you don't have, think about what you want, like focus in a different direction. Do you find that actually serves you better too?
And even most recently, so for the first 1.5 to 2 years of launching my business, it was just up. Like, I happened to be in a space that just thrived during COVID. And I think I did a good job of accepting. You know, there were moments when I was like, who am I to deserve this? You know, like, who am I to be? But I was like, I'm serving and helping people. This is just, you know, on the last downturn, I was on the opposite side of it. You know, when the market crashed last time, I was on the other side of it. On this time, I happened to be in a space where the economy needed what I was serving, you know, and that worked very well. So, but I mentally had grown to a place where I could do it without guilt and just try to serve as big and as best as I could. Mm-hmm. Then I feel like I hit a lid on what I was capable, had grown myself to accept almost, and got to this place of kind of just maintenance, which was amazing. The maintenance level was way higher than I'd ever been before. But so May, June, and July of this year, I feel like I was very much in this space of just, I was just holding the course. I had been pretty much holding the course for a little while. We were trying to decide where we wanted to live, what we wanted to do. Should we move away from family? I didn't know if I could. And like, should we travel more? All these kind of like decisions that were very first world problem decisions, but they consumed me. And then in July, I basically started like this questioning myself of how good could it get? I was so scared of stepping away and changing some things fundamentally. Like, we sold everything we had, our house and all of our stuff, and moved from the Midwest down to Arizona is where we're at right now, in just a temporary space. But letting go of that, I was so worried and caught up in the scarcity of what was I giving up. And it took 3 months for me to make the shift of, what if I can define what this looks like? How good could it be? And then I did the same thing in business. I was so worried that I would have to go back and do all the work I did pounding the pavement of building a network and meeting people from 2013 to 2015. That really monetized for me, 2017, 2018, 2019. So I was worried, like, to take myself to my next level, do I have to go back and do all that work again? And I was just stuck in that feeling like I would have to, like, because that's all I knew. And then again, I had to shift from scarcity to abundance. And how good could it be? What could it look like? What do you love looking? What do you love doing? And I like talking. I love teaching. I love like just being in that space. I'd done some speaking engagements. I was like, what if that just happens? And then, kid you not, look at you show up, and a number of other opportunities have presented myself where I am just talking about lessons I've learned. And now in the last 2 months, my business has exploded again. And they aren't necessarily, you could say they're completely one because of the other, but in essence, they really aren't. The only thing that changed was I changed my perspective, which allowed my energy to shift. So now I'm speaking more, I'm serving more, and not even necessarily in my business, but then my business exploded as well. And all of it is just more in flow and in alignment. And it's still scary because I don't know exactly what it looks like, because I'm in that space of I've never done it this way before again.
Well, that was all so good. And people need to go back and listen to that again, because the art of visualizing and almost programming your nervous system to looking forward and then not getting caught up in the how, right? Like, this is what I want, and get clarity on what you want, see it materialize, see it physically exist, communicate it to your physical body and through all of your, your senses, your emotions, your fiber, and then not get lost in how you do it. Which is, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, well, that's not possible. I don't know how I'm going to do that. That's going to take too many hours. I don't have that much money. I need more people. I need this. I need that. That has to work. There's so many circumstances that have to happen in order for you to achieve your goal. So we get lost in chasing the goal. But by creating that really clear visualization, you actually also identify a really strong pull, right? It's like the pull becomes so strong that you can't ignore it. And I love how you communicated that. I really urge the listeners to go back and listen to what you just said, because you just gave away the formula. Like that is so powerful, and there is such a gift in what you just shared there. And I've recently just started to learn this too, is the power of this visualization and not getting lost in the how. It's so incredibly powerful.
The how ends up working itself out. And I think for us rule followers, like, I have never gotten a B in my life. Like,
and you're a grinder. So you're like, how do I just do more work and produce and work harder? And it's true.
And for that type of personality, I think it can be much harder to work easier, but smarter. Like, I used to study for tests so much the night before and procrastinate that I would make myself sick, like physically throw up. And then if I knew the material, I would do it anyways, because I was like, if I didn't go through that sacrifice, would I still get the A? You know what I mean?
Right.
So letting go of that idea, and my mentor now, he constantly, he's like, you don't need to work more. You work enough. He's like, you need to work smarter, and you need to allow more flow in your life. You need to take better care of your health. You need to take better care of your mind. You need to be in a happy place so your energy is right, and everything else is going to work itself out. And doing that is hard. Doing less is harder. More. And then from the visualization, when you were just talking through and giving kind of that recap of go back and listen, I think it's the visualization, but then being willing to take imperfect action. Because you don't know the how. So you just got to do something and be willing to take that imperfect action and not look pretty doing it. It's those people. And that's why we have folks that you're like, how the heck did he get there? I mean, he's a train wreck. Well, because he tried again and again and again until he made it work.
That's right. I think you summarize that really well, because having the visualization it's just not enough. Like, you need to have a really strong pull, but you got to put effort. You got to take swings. You got to try things. You got to iterate. And I think for people who are producers, you need to have that balance. I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Is that you have to be able to take action, get stuff done, create momentum, but also have a really clear path and learn how to allow things to happen. And I believe in the beauty of circumstances. Like, circumstances add up to manifesting what you want, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I have a really good example of that. Would you like the example?
Yeah, let's go.
So I work with some folks right now, and I see people that are higher, and even myself, I see some of my colleagues, they are higher skilled, but lower in results because they just don't have as many conversations or many at-bats. Mm-hmm. So you have people that are winning at a higher level, earning more, creating more, that are actually lower skilled, but they take more swings. They take more attempts. So the numbers just end up working out. Numbers are the numbers. If you show up more, you're going to get rewarded more, especially in the entrepreneurial space, and some people I'm trying to coach right now, there is little I can do to help them. I can't tweak when you aren't out there actually taking action. There's nothing to fix. And I think this can help a lot in personal growth. Some people just become personal growth junkies. They've been to 20 UPWs and 8 other type events, but they've never actually done any implementation or action. They're in the cycle of getting ready to get ready to get ready, and they think they need to know everything, and they will live their entire life in that space. Where there's others, like you and I, they're like, well, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. It's kind of going to be a show, but we're going to do it anyways. You know,
I'm sure a lot of people are in that feedback loop, like constantly learning and learning and learning. What advice do you have to get them off that track?
If you've got an idea right now, there is a limit to the lifetime of an opportunity. If you have an idea, just go for progress. Take immediate action so that you can get through, learn the lesson you need to learn. And it might be that thing, but it might lead you to another thing or another person or something that's even a better fit. But getting stuck in inaction and just constantly learning but never implementing, you just have to take the step. And if you've been a perfectionist and a rule follower, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. Really, really uncomfortable, but you have got to take action.
I was listening to, I can't remember if it was a book or a podcast or something, but they were talking about, it was Tom Ballew's, anyways, doesn't matter. But they were talking about writing, and people have ideas for writing, and we talk about writer's block, and the advice that people give to writers is like, the goal is not to write perfection every single day, because if you start the day of like, I need to write the book, you'll never write the book. So you have to break it up into actionable, unintimidating action steps of, I'm going to write 100 words. And even if they suck, it doesn't matter. But right. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurship, action taking, creating momentum is not solving the biggest problem up front right now. It's, let me take one baby step and then, celebrate those wins of, I wrote 100 steps. Awesome. I'm going to celebrate that. And just creating these little milestones that allow you to create that momentum. And like we talked about, right, those circumstances add up and you iterate. Right. So I think that there's something, I learned a lot from that.
Right. My husband's favorite author does that. Peter something or other. He's a sci-fi author, and he writes 10 pages a day, every day, no matter what. Right. He's like, it can be Thanksgiving morning, and my 10 pages are going to end up being about something not even part of my book, but he's written more books and more content than anybody else, that he never has a block, because he's like, when I have a block, I write gibberish.
And that's okay.
Yep. And he lets it be okay. 10 pages. Okay. Absolute crap. Doesn't matter. Never going to use it, whatever. I think the other, one of the ways that this has definitely showed up in my life is we figured it out, and I've moved 12 times in 20 years, my poor husband. But we always, that is a great example of, he always wanted to live downtown. So fine, you win this move. We move downtown. Then we're like, we need more green, but here's what we love about where we live. So then we went and found that type of a condo with more green, but kept what we loved. Then we moved and we knew we needed more of this or more of that. And that's what inspired every move. We kept what we loved, but we knew we wanted something else. And I think especially if you have an entrepreneurial bone in your body, take some of those things and take action early. Like my franchise, the guy down from us, he had cashed in his entire retirement and took the risk, and he was in his 50s, early 60s, and he ended up losing. We were 30. We could recover and come back stronger. He learned some hard lessons at a whole different space in life. Now, I hope that he's gritty. I mean, I don't consider that old yet. I think you can still recover and come back even better and blah, 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 blah. But I'm really grateful. Like, I feel like some people hold on to a dream so long, and the second they get there, 3 months into it, they're like, the expectation of what I thought this would be and the reality are two very different things. And you just wished for 20 years for something that you don't even actually want. You could have known that 19 years ago.
Man, Tanya, we could talk for hours. Tell the audience how they can find you.
Absolutely. It's super simple. I'm TanyaHagre.com. I am Tanya Hagre on social media. Just TANYA Last name is Hagre. My personal page is where I'm most active. And then I'm on Instagram, same, LinkedIn, whatever, but everything is just my name, TanyahAghre.
Well, listen, I so sincerely appreciate you and how you show up in the world and all the value you bring. This conversation was amazing. You know, if you're a listener listening to this podcast today, I want you guys to go back and listen to this multiple times because there were some really amazing knowledge drops that Tanya shared with us today. Tanya, I guess last question is, what keeps you up at night?
Okay. Can I give a light answer and a deep answer?
Yes, ma'am. You sure can.
I very much believe in the gray of the world and the debate. And we've gotten to be very black and white thinking, us versus them in the last few years. And narcissistic communication is now more the norm and accepted. And that makes me really, really sad. I'm nervous about that and what that means. And I find myself going a little bit more in and just controlling what I can control and just trying to stay in progress, because if I get too much into current day events and news and everything, I bring no good. I don't even get any work done, and I get too sad. So the balance right now between being aware and being an advocate for good and debate and good communication and trying to take our world to a positive space and moving yourself forward without getting too sad and depressed over just such a division, that keeps me up at night. But I'm trying, that's a really hard thing. And I think it's been really hard this year for a lot of us. And I think black and white thinking is really, really bad. I think there's a lot of beauty in the gray. I've actually I did a post about it once, and every once in a while I repost it because it's more true now than when I originally posted it. Other things that keep me up at night that are fun, or just it's crazy to live in this complete space of having sold everything. We just rented a furnished rental and we're creating, and things are really, really flowing and just really, really fun right now in a lot of ways too. So excitement, just literally I feel so in purpose right now. And that I think I've kind of made that big growth just in the last 2 months of living from abundance instead of from scarcity. That was such a timely question for me because I feel like I'm in it right now.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 months have really made a big, huge leap in that space. And I'm excited about it because this is the most fun I've had and most in purpose I've felt in maybe ever.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. This was really an amazing recording and episode, and I've enjoyed jamming with you. If you, as a listener, have got some great value to this, please download the episode and share it with a friend. And Tanya, again, thanks so much for joining us on the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you, darling.